Hi guys, Carissa here with Inky Fairy Designs for the Blitzy Creative team today, and we're taking another background that we had created to break through our fear of white space and completing it today with lots of paint background or paint layers and then a fun way to use a 12 by 12 stencil on a small panel. So I'm starting out, I did already gesso this page and just a light layer of gesso watered down. And then I'm taking these really fun fluorescent golden colors. I'm using pink, fluorescent pink and magenta. And I'm just I like how I start with a brush and then I end up using my fingers anyway. So I try using the brush, but then inevitably I begin to finger paint anyway. So I don't know. Anyway, either way, you can apply it with a paintbrush or you can apply it with your fingers. And then I wanted to brighten that a little bit and with like a contrasting color. And I brought in this Pebeo fluorescent yellow. So apparently I was in a bright mood today when I started this page. And I'm just kind of adding little areas and little pops of that yellow. So I'm using this acrylic glazing medium, and what it does is it extends the life of your paint, and it's a lot of fun to use over any sort of textured background. I'm using carbon black with it, so I kind of use one part of the acrylic glazing and one part paint, roughly. I don't measure it out, I just kind of eyeball it. Now I'm going to go over my entire panel, which you're probably freaking out as my girls were as they were watching me do this. They were like, what are you doing? You're covering it all up. Just bear with me. We're going to let this sit for about 1 to 2 minutes, and then we're going to take a baby wipe and we're going to start wiping off that paint. Now what the glazing medium will do is it's going to settle all of that paint color into the areas that are that have the texture on it, so kind of like the nooks and crannies. And I'm not sure what happened here. I think my background wasn't completely dry when I went in with this, because you can see as I'm wiping it off, I'm wiping off a lot of that pink fluorescent paint that was underneath. So I'm pretty sure that that layer was not completely dry when I went in with the glazing on top, which is totally fine. It's just if you don't want that to happen, I would make sure that your layer is completely dry before you went in with the glazing medium. So I mixed up a little bit more, and I really wanted it to fill in these this like drywall tape. I really wanted it to kind of fill in the nooks and crannies there, so I'm kind of concentrating around the edges and the inside. Again, I let it sit for 1 to 2 minutes. You kind of just have to play with it, and as I use a clean baby wipe, it wipes away more of that paint, but leaves it in the areas where kind of the baby wipe doesn't reach. And so that's one of the cool effects that you can get with a glazing medium. So then I'm going to come back in with some more of that fluorescent pink and magenta, because I really wiped a lot of that away. But you know what? With mixed media, there are no mistakes. You can just go in and add more layers and fill it in and fix it. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going in and adding more of that color on top. And that pink really looks orange on my screen, but I assure you it's pink, and then the magenta is the darker color. So I'm coming in with this, I think it's Cobalt Teal by Deco Art, and I'm using like a gift card or just a flat card, and I'm scraping that along my panel, and then I'm also using it to create some paint marks on my surface, so it's just adding a little bit more texture. So I'm kind of scraping away some of that wet paint, and I don't know, it just looks really cool. So I'm taking this really large 12 by 12 stencil. It's by the Crafters Workshop. I love this stencil, and I guess I just had to use it. And I have a 4 by 6 panel, and I'm using a 12 by 12 stencil. I'm showing you that I'm using the Prima Graphite Texture Paste. This stuff is really cool. And so I'm just going to scrape that on. I kind of centered it as much as I could to get most of her face and some of her hair. I love this texture paste because it looks gray and it's got shimmer. It's got some glitter in it. You can see it on the screen right now. You can see all of that glitter. It's really pretty. But what's cool about it is that when it dries opaque and it dries black. So it really does have a graphite look to it. I'm just scraping off the excess along the edges and then I'll clean up my stencil. You definitely want to make sure you do that. So this is how it looks wet. You can see all of that dimension and it does look gray. At this point, I'm thinking I made a huge mistake, but we're going to keep moving and we're going to see where this takes us. Once that was completely dry, I wanted to bring in some more white because I have a hard time leaving white space, so I end up bringing in white after I've added tons of color, and it's just whatever works with you. And so I'm using this Prima stencil and just adding some graphic elements all around and bringing in some of that white. And I'm going right over that texture paste and it's completely fine. I actually like the way the paint handles on top of it. So again, I'm bringing in some more white using a Sakura Perma Opaque white paint marker. And I'm just kind of outlining some of the strands of her hair. I'm going to outline the side of her face and I think I outline her eyes. So just kind of highlighting certain areas of the stencil to try to make it pop off the page a little bit. And this is super subtle, but I think it really makes a big difference. Sometimes subtle effects really can make your page stand out. So even though like in the end it's not really eye-popping, it really does define the stencil area just enough that it doesn't fade completely into the background. So I'm just kind of adding a few more highlights around the face and going over 1 or 2 times to get more white on it because it kind of fades. Now I left this in even though I don't end up using this in my final piece, but I wanted to show you how, because of all of the layers that you have, you can actually wipe away mistakes sometimes instead of covering them up like I usually do. So I wanted to create a tear on my girl, and I thought I would use this blue, but you can see that it kind of just fades away and it wasn't really giving me the impact that I wanted. So I'm taking a baby wipe, and since it was wet, not white, since it was wet already because I sprayed some water on it and I'm still working it, I'm like, well, maybe if I add some white, it'll help stand it out. Still wasn't giving me the impact I wanted, so I end up using a baby wipe and just wiping it completely away. Because my layers in the background were completely dry, I can do that and it didn't mess it up. So here I decided I'm going to use some of this Liquitex acrylic ink to give me that teardrop, and this gave me the pop that I was looking for. I love the way that this gold just shimmers and shines, giving that teardrop just a really beautiful effect. So I'm letting it drop, but I'm going to wipe away some of that, and then I want to create like a wetter surface underneath so that it kind of glides over the canvas easier. So I'll spray some water and then I'm going to add some more of that Liquitex gold acrylic paint, and then it'll move more on my surface, and then I'm just kind of going to deepen up that gold towards the top. So it's really fun. I love these acrylic paint bottles. They're really fun to work with. So for the journaling on this page, I'm going to use the Tim Holtz Small Talk sticker sheet. There's so many words on here. There is something for every emotion or thought that you're trying to achieve with your art journaling. And so I chose You Are Enough, and then I also chose Be You Bravely, because that's just kind of where I was working on this piece. There was a lot that wasn't working originally, but just moving forward and continuing to work with the process, A lot of times I think art journaling and mixed media is a lot about the process and not necessarily where you end up, because you learn a lot about yourself. You also learn a lot about the mediums that you're working with. So it's a really fun way to get to know your artistic style as well as the mediums that you're interested in using. So I hope that these videos are encouraging you to start your own art journal using these techniques. Um, it's a really fun way to explore ideas, and we really looked into, how to start an art journal page and then how to finish it using different mediums. So here you can see all of that beautiful texture and how the graphite just really dries to a really deep black with that kind of shimmery silver glittery look. I just love it. So I'm outlining my stickers with a black Uniball journaling pen, just kind of to tie it into the piece. I'm also going to add some doodles around my page just to kind of tie in that kind of doodle look around the stickers. I always like to, whatever I use in one area of my art journal page, I like to use it in other areas just to create a more cohesive, balanced look. So that's something that you'll see me using a lot. But that's about it. I really love, this is actually one of my favorite pieces that I have done in a while, and it was definitely a lot of fun to do. It also gave me more ideas to use the larger stencils on smaller areas. I think it can give you a lot of different looks and effects, so, and kind of stretch them. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. For more ideas and inspiration, be sure to check out the Blitzy blog and Facebook page. Until next time, happy crafting.